Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Hello everyone, it's Ellen Mary here, host of today's podcast episode. It's one of the special episodes between Series 4 and Series 5, which is coming really soon. The specials are where Michael and I have both been recording solo. It's very weird actually doing them without each other. And Michael, of course, has been covering breeding and plants specifically, and I've been covering plants and nature for well-being. So both topics that we are, of course, really passionate about. And in today's episode, I speak to the absolutely lovely Lindsay Cobb from Trees for the Future. I'm an ambassador for Trees for the Future, and you might be wondering how this all links to well-being, but it will all become very apparent when you listen to the episode. It was an absolutely lovely discussion. It's so great to see that the work that they're doing. So if you can, listen and look them up, that would be amazing. They're all over social media, and the work they do is it really gives you a sense of well-being just in yourself. And that's that I'm not even doing any of the actual work. So what actually happens to the farmers who take part in training and also farming the land in a forest gardening approach, their well-being is hugely improved. But listen on, because it's truly heartwarming. And before you do, I would just love to mention our sponsored walk. So Michael and I, we're doing a 20-mile walk on the 16th of September for a charity called The Feed, who are based in Norwich. And their mission, and it's a big mission, is to help poverty, hunger and homelessness in the city and surrounding areas. And we both would love it so much if you could sponsor us. £600 actually sees one person trained and mentored through a program to get them back out to work. So we have our target set and we have our walking shoes ready as well, and we're really looking forward to doing it. If you can sponsor us, we'd be so appreciative. You can find links in both of our bios online on Instagram and just about everywhere else. My Instagram is at Ellen Mary Gardening, and of course Mr. Plant Geeks is at Mr. Plant Geek. You won't miss us, and we really hope that you can help out. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it makes you feel warm and bubbly inside by the end of it. And please also do go and support Trees for the Future. So hello, Lindsay. Welcome so much to the podcast.
Hi, Ellen. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a little rainy, busy day, but enjoying it.
So you're in Maryland at the moment, are you?
Our headquarters is based in Maryland, but I'm actually in West Virginia.
Okay, you're in West Virginia. Oh my gosh, how beautiful. And you're coming up to like the autumnal season as well, with all the colours in the trees and everything.
Yes, ma'am. We just are at the end of peach season here at my house. So we have an old peach orchard that still has a few seasons left in it. And so we've basically cleared all the peaches at this rate, a couple more possibly hanging on to the branches, but it's just about over. And then soon, maybe mid-September, we'll start to see all the leaves change.
Oh, the changes in the leaves are so beautiful. It made me laugh when you said about peaches, because my husband and I always laugh. He was actually driving through Georgia yesterday, and there's a big peach in Georgia, and it's like peaches are the Georgia thing, aren't they? Right. And so for us, Brits coming over to the US. We're like, wow, look at the gigantic peach. What's that for? And then we realised that obviously Georgia is all about peaches. But, anyway, all of those kind of states have such perfect weather for growing peaches. We don't quite so much here in Britain.
I wouldn't think so. West Virginia isn't ideal, but we make it work.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, brilliant. As I've already said in the introduction, Lindsay is Marketing and Communications Manager at Trees for the Future. I'm really looking forward to our listeners hearing more about your amazing organisation and what you do there. And I just know our listeners are going to love it. I just can't wait. So everybody listening, put your feet up or put your headphones on if you're in the garden and just, learn all about Trees for the Future. I'm so proud to be an ambassador and work with you as well. So first of all, Lindsay, I'm sure this is probably asked of you very, very often, and you probably have a script now, but tell us all about Trees for the Future. Tell us the history and where you're at now.
I'd be happy to. That's what my job's all about, right? So Trees for the Future is a nonprofit training farmers in sub-Saharan Africa and actually providing training materials around the world. But our goal is to end hunger, poverty, deforestation, and general misuse of land through agroforestry. Trees for the Future, we actually just celebrated our 32nd anniversary this past week. And so we're really excited for that major milestone, but we've planted trees and trained farmers all around the globe. And what we've really been focused on in the last decade or so is what we call the forest garden approach. And forest gardens are located around the world. One of the oldest forest gardens, I think, is in the UK. It's a really centuries old method of growing food and preserving the land at the same time. And so that's what we teach farmers how to do. We work with local staff to train farmers in sub-Saharan Africa to protect their land using trees and agroforestry techniques. And then as they move through the program, they begin to diversify what they grow and optimize their space so that they're able to eat what they grow and sell what they grow, improving their livelihoods and at the same time improving their land and protecting the environment.
It's fascinating, really, isn't it? Like, first of all, I'm a massive tree lover. Like, I hug trees just like every day, and people laugh at me. They're like, "Oh, there's Ellen hugging a tree," or "Ellen, did you hug a tree today?" I'm like, you don't need to ask me, because trees don't just look amazing, but they filter pollution, they give shelter, they give homes to wildlife. But what you're doing is providing all of those things, but also within that environment is creating a land that's able to to produce crops for food security and hunger, stopping hunger. And I mean, this does transform people's lives. And I trees give so much more. We know obviously what they do. We can't breathe without them at the end of the day. Anyone who says to me, if I say to someone, "Do you like trees? Are you interested in trees?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, you do realize, like, you'd literally not be here, right, without trees. So go give that tree a hug. Anyway, so what you do, here is just a whole other level. It's so exciting. And what do you do? What's your role? I mean, I know I've said that you're marketing and communications manager, but what does that kind of all entail? What's a day in the life of Lindsay?
Oh, it's great though, isn't it? It's really full of storytelling, which is something that I love, and obviously something that you and your team love as well. Being, working on this podcast, I get to connect with my colleagues from across the planet. I work really closely with some marketing and communications counterparts in Senegal, Kenya, and Uganda. And so we collect farmer stories and staff stories and make sure that we're basically able to explain to folks what their support makes possible. So when we have a donor who is, committing their hard-earned money to supporting Trees for the Future and our mission, what I'm aiming to do every single day is turn that impact into a relatable story where people can understand that their support of Trees for the Future is making a difference on the ground every single day, not just planting trees, but providing this training that is effectively changing someone's life and their family members' lives. So it's really fun, getting to see pictures of the work that we do, getting to watch these videos from staff, and we live in such an interesting time, right? Where any staff member takes their cell phone out and takes a video of a farmer, harvesting their tomatoes or planting a handful of seedlings that are ready to come out of the nursery. And so the marketing team and I get to take all of that information and really filter it back out to our audiences who make it possible in the first place.
And I really love what you do and how you do it, actually, because it's, you were saying how, the area that you mainly work in, some of your supporters or donors or anyone who's interested might not, live or have ever been to that environment. And so many people will say, well, why would we help someone who's not in our country? Why would we help something that's not at home? And I was watching this amazing program. It was on Netflix and it was called Connected. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's so good. And it's like a documentary series all about how we are actually all connected in loads of different ways. So some is like throughout the natural world. Some is to do with something called Bedford's Law. You'll have to go and look that one up. It's really freaky. But anyway, like IT and numbers and stuff. So it's all kinds of different stuff. But I was watching this one the other night, which is about how in the Sahara Desert, which obviously used to be a massive big lake, it dried up. And the algae is now kind of like a stone, but that obviously breaks down to dust. And the dust in the sandstorms comes straight over the Atlantic, and it actually helps to keep the Amazon rainforest living and alive and well and doing its amazing job. So, I always like everything everywhere is connected. What's happening in Africa actually genuinely affects everybody in some way. Everything has an impact, doesn't it? And what you do also, it's to do with the environment. You're creating a better environment, more biodiverse. So, and this impacts the whole world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I love that you brought up the Amazon and and the connection there. I'm gotta watch this show now, apparently.
I wonder where I was going with that. It literally came to us. I watched this program and it's like, it's so good. Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm excited for the recommendation. But if you remember, and you see it often in the headlines in the last few years, but as land degradation and soil erosion and desertification become increasingly more pressing challenges for the global community, the link between the Sub-Saharan and Sahel and the link between the Amazon is just that much more apparent when we see huge dust plumes blowing across the Atlantic Ocean that are actually visible to those of us in North and South America. That isn't the connection we want, right? We want these beneficial molecules or whatever however you want to describe, these algae particles coming across the Atlantic Ocean and providing nutrients, providing the proteins, providing the life that is needed for everything that's happening on our planet. But what we've seen happen in the last couple generations is that we've disrupted this process. And so it's not just it's not just the particles blowing across the ocean that we're wanting to see in the Amazon. We're seeing entire landscapes blown away, picked up and dropped into the ocean or dropped into, other continents. And that's really scary and really, really illustrative of where our farming practices have gotten us as a global population, right? And so when we look at a farmer in Senegal who has been using degrading practices because that's what is used, that's what's incentivized, that's what they have at their disposal. And then you see all of the soil get blown away we really have to step back and think, well, how are we going to grow our food if we literally don't have the soil to grow it, right? And that's what Trees for the Future is doing, is connecting. Well, where are these trees? Where did these trees go? How can we put more trees here? How can the farmer embrace tree planting, embrace agroforestry to basically repair the degraded lands that we have, improve the nutrients, improve the soil quality, and then see their farm come back to life for the good of themselves and their family, as well as the good of the local market and everybody who eats and needs them to buy food from. And then all of us as a global community of needing our planet to be protected for generations to come.
Exactly. It's a global community, and it's very easy, I think, for anyone to think, well, this is my patch. I'm in the UK or I'm in the US or, or I'm in my garden. But every single thing you do has an impact, and you guys are making such a big one. And what I'd really love to know is, how do you train farmers? So if you have, guys that have land and they've been working in a certain way for a really long time, how do you implement the training? How do you teach people that actually forest gardening is the best approach, for their future?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely an art, let's say.
I'm sure.
So I lived in Kansas in the Midwest in the US for some time as a reporter, and I got to cover a lot of agriculture related stories. And that really gave me the chance to learn about how food is grown in the West and how we have really shifted into this idea, this need to intensify. And so as farming became industrialized, in the 1900s, and as farmers had all of these amazing tools at their disposal to be able to grow more and harvest more and sell more, and oh my gosh, isn't this amazing that we can grow more food and feed more people? And that all seemed fine and well, but it was rather short-sighted in that when we industrialize agriculture and specifically try to intensify what we grow, we take all of the nutritious benefits of the soil out of the soil too quickly. The crops aren't able to replenish the soil, and then we end up with desertification. And we see it around the world, not just in sub-Saharan Africa. We see it in Kansas. We see it in the UK. We see it everywhere that this is happening, where we're trying to clear land to grow more food so that we can sell more food, so that we can make money. And it's just this endless cycle. And for farmers in the developing world who don't have a safety net in crop insurance and government support, they fall into this cycle of poverty at the same time. So not only is their land degraded, but now they don't have a sustainable, reliable way of making money and feeding their family. And so they continue to clear more land again. Okay, how can I get rid of a few more trees to plant a little bit more of this maize or a little bit more of this peanut crop, right? And so when Trees for the Future, local staff, again, our program is so built on local relationships. And it's very important to the organization that the folks that are training the farmers are from those communities, right? And because that's how you have a successful program. And so local staff work with farmers who are interested in learning about more sustainable agroforestry practices. And so there's already this interest from the farmer, and staff basically walk them through how growing more diverse crops will play out in the future. If you've only had one payday a year for the last 10 years, last 20 years, think about how you can have dozens of paydays. Think about how you can have crops coming up for harvest throughout the year, and you have something to eat or sell every month of the year rather than once a year. And when you get people to understand that change, there's really an interest in, okay, yes, I want to make that happen. And so farmers who own X amount of acres will take 1 acre and make that their forest garden. And so they have the opportunity to see how this method works in one part of their land, and they can still continue doing what they were doing, and what they're comfortable with doing. One of my colleagues says it really well. She says farmers are risk averse. They don't want to change because they don't know what's going to happen, and this is their livelihood. They know that that if they continue doing what they've been doing, there's a chance that they get that payday at the end of that harvest, right?
And that's the same all over the world. That's every farmer everywhere.
Absolutely, right? Farmers everywhere, so risk averse. So many things can go wrong, and so they're just trying to do their best to feed their families, to feed the world. We all depend on farmers, right? And so they want to make sure that they succeed. And so that can cause a lot of hesitancy for anybody, right? And so local staff work very closely with them to show them the benefits. And we have farmers, we have farmers that we try to get into the program who say no, thank you. And we say, okay, we hope we want to provide this training for you, but if you're not interested right now, that's okay. You know where to find us, right? And that's what happens. They see their neighbors with these forest gardens over the 4-year program start to flourish and become these lush, really, especially in West Africa, where it's almost like this oasis of trees surrounded by degraded land. And farmers will come back to staff and say, hey, when you have the next cycle of training startup, I'd really like to be a part of it this time. I see the they
can see the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing. I just it just must be such a massive big task to be working in all of these countries, and getting people on board who are so used to farming in a certain way. So it's so amazing. Can you just tell us, I know I'm I just love what you do. I can't help it. So can you tell me a little bit more in detail what forest gardening actually is? Like, what do you do?
Sure. So when we talk about how farming has been done in the modern world, right? And it's monocrop agriculture. So it's really what most of us think of when we think of farming. Rows and rows and rows of one crop. For me, it's always been corn. That's what I think of. Corn. And so the forest garden approach breaks that model. And it's an old approach. Forest gardens have been around for centuries. But what forest gardens do is they combine they basically replicate what's happening in nature. You don't see food and plants and trees growing in straight lines. You don't see them all planted at the same time and harvested at the same time. It's this beautiful mix and what we call a permaculture environment. And so a forest garden in a Trees for the Future trained farmer's forest garden is going to be about an acre in size, acre in size. There's going to be a living fence around the perimeter of the land. And so that living fence, rather than a quote unquote dead fence made of dead wood, is made up of literally thousands of trees and shrubs and hedges that create a barrier around the land, mainly for weather, right? So if you have really extreme winds, those winds that pick up the dust and the bacteria and bring it over to the Amazon, those same winds pull all of the important topsoil that's supposed to stay put in the forest garden. And so these local, these native fast-growing agroforestry tree species are planted around the perimeter of the land in what we call the living fence. That cuts down on wind erosion. It cuts down on water erosion when floods come through seasonally. And then it can also keep herding animals out. So when there are goats or cattle or whatever they may be grazing in the area from a neighboring farm, the living fence keeps those animals off the property, off the forest garden. There's actually stories from Trees for the Future farmers where living fences can keep out, a rhinoceros because it's made up of all of these thick, prickly thorny bushes and trees that really keep animals from being able to get in. And
wow, even a rhinoceros is like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And so then inside the living fence, you have dozens of species, whether those are fruit trees, nut trees, maybe it's a timber tree because the farmer relies on cutting down trees for building homes or for, creating charcoal. And so basically the forest garden has everything that the farmer could need to eat or to use as a resource, right? And ultimately to sell. And so you see all of these different species of trees, fruit, nut, agroforestry trees. And then you see market gardens where a farmer is growing lettuce, tomatoes, peppers. Maybe they're growing squash. Maybe they're growing onions. They're growing eggplants. So they're growing all of these different fruits and vegetables within the forest garden. And so a forest garden is really aptly named, right? It's a forest, but it's also a garden. And so it has all of these elements of trees and sustainability and, exactly what you said at the beginning. It's sequestering carbon, it's cooling the planet, it's doing all these great things for the land. But at the same time, these trees are living in harmony with all of the fruit and vegetable crops that the farmer needs to thrive. And so the farmer is really working with the land instead of against it when they commit to a forest garden approach and establish this harmonious relationship on their farm.
And it's really clear, you actually mentioned it just before, that it is really just as nature intended it. Trees and plants and everything else, that's, we're the ones that have come along and kind of messed with the system, haven't we? So kind of working with nature is, well, I mean, that has to be beneficial for everyone. And this, of course, is a Wellbeing Special. So I think it's really important that we do just have a chat about how this really helps communities, how it helps the farmers who've changed the way that they garden and the community locally to them as a whole, because I know we've kind of talked about globally how that, creates such a big impact. But just, with regards to people's well-being, if a farmer has been working land probably so very hard for a really long time, and like you said, only getting one paycheck a year, that's got to be tough. That's got to be really hard. And now, after a 4-year program of forest gardening, their income should be higher. They should have a bit more food security. So, how do you see people's well-being change as they go through the program? And do you have any kind of like particular stories to tell that stick in your mind, of something that's worked out so well?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have too many, but no, not too many, but so many to choose from. There are so many what we call sub-impacts from the forest garden approach because of everything that it can do for a family. There's not just hunger and poverty alleviation, but when you alleviate those two things, all of the other opportunities that open up are incredible. A farmer who now has enough money to put in savings to then be able to send their children to school is one of my favorite elements of our program. You look at these families who have been working so hard and living day to day, and the kids aren't able to go to school because they're needed for help, and the funds aren't there to buy the books and buy the uniform and get them into class. And with the forest garden, within months, farmers start to earn more money than they ever did before the forest garden. And they're investing that back into themselves and into their children and really ultimately breaking that cycle of hunger and poverty because their children are now in class, in school, learning.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. But there's so many different things, especially as far as equality and equity for women, especially in a field, in an industry that is so dominated by men, agriculture. We make sure to include women in our programs to the point that we make sure that at least 30% of each project is made up of women. And so if we haven't hit that 30% mark, staff are actively, always actively searching to bring women into the program, but really challenging themselves in the local community to say, no, women need to be a part of this. If this is going to be a long-lasting change for the family, for the community, for our food systems, for our planet, women need to be involved and come on over, sign up and be part of this with us. And so I love to see the stories of female farmers and just how they thrive. They're such leaders in their families already. And then when they get the forest garden training, they are provided with some of the tools that they were maybe missing before to be able to really take ownership of the farm and really build it to its full potential. And so you really see the woman's touch when how successful the forest garden is. So
the woman's gardening touch.
Yes, right? And then I'll say my last sub impact, as we call them, and I'll can I share stories with you? Can I share stories with you?
Yes, please.
After, like links? Can we drop links?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll send you some links to these different farmers that I have in mind. But Mamadou is a Senegalese farmer, and he was planning on leaving home. He had done his best. He had tried farming his land and supporting his family, and came to the point where he decided that he was going to leave Senegal in search of opportunity in Europe. And sadly, we see so many people, we being our global community, see so many people having to make that hard decision of I cannot make a living here in my home country. So now I have no choice but to seek work as a migrant elsewhere. And he was at that point and knew that he was going to harvest his last crop in a few months. I'm blanking on the time of year that it was, but he was going to harvest his crop in a few weeks or a few months, and then he was going to pack up and he was going to try to find opportunity elsewhere. And at that same time, Trees for the Future was mobilizing a project in his community, and so he decided to join and see how it went, see what he could learn. And I'm so happy to report that he was able to stay home. He turned his land and his farm completely around. His children are eating regular meals every day. They're going to school. He's excited about what, the opportunities, the different business opportunities that he's seeing on his land, as far as, often the farmers will build, side business through their forest garden, whether that's buying livestock and chickens and eggs, or maybe it's, producing organic pesticides that they make from their property that they can then sell to other farmers in the area, or maybe they're selling compost to other farmers in the area. And so he was able to really complete this 180 from falling into this cycle of hunger and poverty and migration to being able to thrive on his own land where he wants to be with his family and his relations. So
that is such an amazing success story for Trees, but for that particular farmer who was, considering leaving his home, his land, his people, everything that he's known, in search of opportunity, but being given that, right in front of him that he could do, must make him and his family feel so proud, and just so much more confident and motivated. And also, as kind of the one thing that really hit home with what you've been saying right now is the future for the children as well, and breaking that cycle. As a parent, he must be just so excited to see what his children can then do going forward, and overall that must just give you such an amazing sense of well-being to know that you're providing, off your own land, and your children, will have opportunity that perhaps you didn't have until obviously this point. And I think that's a really, really heartwarming story, and it just really shows kind of the heart of what you do, you know. So I think it would be absolutely lovely to have some of the links, and for anyone listening right now, we'll pop them actually into the description on this podcast episode, so you can click on those as well. The links will be there.
Don't give me too much room there though, because I might send you like 20.
You can send as many as you like. We'll give you all the room you need. So that's really lovely. Thank you so much. What I'd love to know is kind of what's the future? What's the future for trees for the future now? You know, what happens next?
Well, we are so excited to be looking ahead to. So as you know, we just celebrated 32 years. It was a really fun week this week of celebrating, you know, where we've been, how far we've come since our founding in 1989. And now it's kind of full steam ahead to 2030 and our 2030 goal to plant 1 billion trees. So yes, so we are currently at just over 220 million trees planted in the last 32 years. But by 2030, we are on track to reach 1 billion trees planted. And it's because of our supporters who have enabled us to grow and reach more people. And it's because of our really focused effort on learning from farmers and learning from staff and seeing what works and what doesn't, and really committing to the forest garden approach and being able to scale our projects. And so this year we planted, by the end of this year, we will have planted about 50 million trees, probably, you know, similar to that next year. And so we're just going to continue scaling up and ultimately hitting this 1 billion tree mark. And obviously, as we've been talking about today, it isn't just about the trees, but looking at the environmental impact and what we're all facing right now with the studies that are coming out. 1 billion trees feels really good. And it's not the only thing that needs to be done, but it's a big step in the right direction of repairing our land for the people who need it to thrive and to have, you know, talk about well-being. I mean, we want to have our planet, our home, that we can thrive on.
Absolutely. I mean, that is overall well-being, isn't it? That we can all live here and thrive together, you know, with all species. That's kind of like the most important thing. So trees for the future isn't just about trees, you know, it's about people and the planet overall. And I absolutely love that. Now, you mentioned your 30-second celebrations this week. I will just have to tell everyone about that. Very excited. So you guys done a really cool live, which I was watching on YouTube, and I tuned in, and I'd been out when I got in. I think it was probably about halfway, and you were telling, giving some great information, and you were also linking up live with other farmers and trainers across Africa. It was really cool. It was so interesting. At the same time, you were running a competition, and I commented and I won some socks, and that was like literally the highlight of my week, that I won some tree socks. And but just towards the end, you had a lovely surprise, and that was somebody in Africa. Tell me where they were. Sorry, he was doing the.
It was Peter, and he was in Kenya in Kiambu, and it was at our demonstration site. So he's our East Africa training coordinator, and he had gathered some staff, everybody masked, to have this surprise tree planting. But it was just so lovely, and I wasn't really expecting it. I'd kind of got in and I sat down and I put the YouTube on and I was watching. I was like, oh, this is so lovely. And then there he was, planting trees to celebrate the 32 years. And then everyone was singing and dancing like in celebration. And it was so lovely. It actually brought tears to my eyes. And I thought, hang on a minute. I'd just been out. I'd literally just turned this on. I did not expect to cry. But that's how touching, you know, what you do really is. You know, it genuinely brought tears to my eyes just to see it all in action. So thank you very much for that, and for the socks. Yes, thank you for tuning in. And I I think I did say this after I announced you were the winner. I said, no, we really chose these randomly. We aren't favoring our ambassador.
I know, it was really funny. I was like, what? Was that my name? Did I just win some socks? Awesome. So yeah, it genuinely was really good, and it's still there on your YouTube channel. So for anyone listening, you can go and rewatch that. I thoroughly recommend it. It was really good. And just before we finish for the podcast today, can you tell listeners how they can connect with you, where they can find you both online and what they can do to support you?
Absolutely. So we have the best URL in the world. It's just trees.org. Easy to find. And there you can find all the information you need to know about us, more about what we do, stories of impact, how you can get involved, all that good stuff. So if that's your only takeaway, it's just trees.org. Easy. But we really rely on support from individual donors, from brand partners, being businesses, and from institutional funders. And so whether you're an individual wanting to help or maybe a business owner wanting to provide some support, we really count on that support from our community to make these trainings and these transformations possible. So right now, anything that you're able to donate is great. We also really encourage everybody to look into the Sustainer Circle, which is our monthly giving program. And not just Trees for the Future, but really any nonprofit, any organization you look at, monthly giving is really a sustainable way to support a cause you care about, because it allows us to anticipate our funding capacity and really gives us the opportunity to count on your support month to month, even if it's only $5. So yeah, just look us up, trees.org, or follow us on social media. Most of our handles are at Trees for the Future. Some are at Trees. So just look around for us. Instagram is at Trees for the Future. We just joined TikTok. So give us a follow there while we get our act together and put some content on.
I love that. I joined TikTok not so long ago. Actually, I joined TikTok during lockdown because I was just so super. What's the word? Bored? I don't know if I was bored. I was just kind of like, itchy feet. And I had a day where I was just kind of like, oh, this is just really rubbish. Like this is not enjoyable. And someone had sent me a link to TikTok, and I watched this video and it just I laughed so much. I was like, oh my God, TikTok's amazing. And then I joined TikTok. So I can't wait to see what you do on there. That will be
well, I hope we don't let you down. I myself just joined it because we joined it at Trees. I had been avoiding it. And now that I've joined it, the pressure to make my first TikTok is real. I tried to make one about my bees and I gave up. And so I'm back to the drawing board.
Once you do it, you'll be fine. I felt that pressure too, but now I just enjoy it and I laugh at it, and it can actually be really good fun. But thank you so much. Everybody, let's help Trees for the Future get their billion trees. I mean, that's remarkable. I know that you're going to make that happen, and I know our listeners will help you as well. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. I feel really good talking to you. Like overall well-being, what you're doing is just such great work, and it really does help to improve people's well-being, not just in Africa but all around the world. Like as we were saying, everything you do creates an impact. So yours is a big one, and I appreciate you giving your time here for Plant-Based Podcast today. So thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Ellen. We really appreciate it. And I hope everybody learned a little something. And just, again, a thank you to all of our supporters and ambassadors as well for helping us reach 32 years and move toward 2030.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to support you. And I will leave you to go away and enjoy your peaches.
Thank you.
The music for the Plant-Based Podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.